Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to be talking with my good friend, Josh Culler. We were just catching up with it. It's been a little bit of a while since we talked, but we're talking about leveraging AI to create content. So I think we're at a point now where there's tools and stuff that make it easier than ever to create content, but there's still a lot of strategy and there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And quite frankly, it's kind of like a fitness coach can tell you need to work out more and eat better. But there's obesity epidemic in America. Everybody knows they need to work out and eat less, but few people do it without some kind of coaching and without kind of holding your hand. And so we're going to talk about like how to be successful in your business by building your own brand and using AI to create content. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Mike, it's good to be here, man. I
Yeah.
love catching up with you, and I'm super excited to jump in.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. You've been creating content as a service for people for a long time. Like maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of dive into what's working now, and we'll kind of go through this topic a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, man. I will keep it short and sweet. If you guys want to learn like completely more about me at the end of the show, Mike's going to have me kind of plug some place where you can get connected with me. So, take advantage of that and learn more about me there. But I'll keep it short and sweet. So I have been in the real estate investing space for now going on 13 years, actually a little over 13 years at this point now. Way back in the day, I got started right out of high school. So I'm currently 32 years old. So I jumped into it literally right out of high school. Got hired by a local real estate investor, a friend of mine. I played basketball with his dad, owned a few hundred rentals in the area. And so I was doing all kinds of the caveman marketing, Mike, the bandit signs, the pre-looks, Craigslist postings, like all the good stuff. And back then, those market conditions were much different. When we're talking 2013-ish, 2014, 2015. And all acquisitions was back then was just placing bids on HUD, auction, MLS, and that sort of thing. And all the marketing was built towards building buyers lists and getting buyers for the deals that you had. So I worked with those people for about 6-7 months, and then got hired by our good buddy Gary Harper to work with him. David Richter was in that organization. There was a few other people that just really big dogs. It was a great organization to be a part of, and we were doing a few hundred deals a year, wholesaling, and then I, at that time, was still creating content, and that was because the market conditions were all about building buyers lists. We were putting out content specifically for buyers. So we would literally, like, we started a podcast for buyers, then we started getting buyers on the podcast and interviewing them as guests, talking about the deals that they bought from us and stuff like that. Just practice-wise, it was all about content, sending out emails and taking that seriously. And so that's kind of where I got my grounds for it. And of course, walking through properties, videoing houses, taking pictures of houses, that was also content creation. You could throw that in there. But there was also the crafting of like the advertising that we had to put out. There was a lot of, thought process that went into that. And so I spent my whole time in the marketing field as in the real estate investing space. And then 2019, March of 2019, I went full time into doing what I am now, which at the core, there's three main things that we do. It's full social media, podcast, and YouTube management from start to finish, all on the organic side. I still might do work with 100% real estate investors, so that's a lot of fun. Being able to stay niched into this industry. It's a great industry to be a part of, and I love the people that I get to work with. Active investors, coaches, people that have masterminds, all that good stuff. And so that's where I stay focused. And now we're turning on this head where AI has come to the forefront here. We wind the clocks back 3-4 years ago. It was riding the TikTok, Instagram wave where you could post a video. Your first video could get a couple million views and you can go viral. We're not in those days anymore, but there's a new resurgence of not just social media, but content as a whole when it comes to AI. So that's what we'll be talking about today. That's what I've been focused on a lot. And so
Yeah.
that's the nutshell there.
Yeah, that's great. One thing we were just talking about before we hit record is a lot of people struggle. I want to talk about ideation in just a minute, like coming up with ideas to talk about, because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is like they're carrying around their phone all day long. And obviously the devices are uh, easier than ever. It's in your pocket, most likely, right? And so, but a lot of people are like, well, I don't really know what to talk about. And the fact is, for real estate investors, like they are immersed in an opportunity, unlike few people, to create content all day long. They're looking at houses, they're talking to sellers, they're talking to members of their team about something bad that just happened. Like all those are like perfect ideas for what to talk about. Like just day in the life type stuff is what really people want to mostly hear about, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what I always go back to, so the strategy that I lay out, I've been laying it out for a very long time. So even before AI came around, and I do think that even with AI, it reinforces the thought process even more. So my definition of content marketing is just answering questions that your target demographic has about who you are, what you do, and your industry. So great example is if you are an active investor and you're marketing to motivated seller leads. Question that they might be asking is, what's the difference between selling my house through a real estate agent and selling it to a cash buyer?
Right.
That's a question they would have, so you shoot a video on that answering the question. And so at the core, that's all it is. So principally, before AI, Mike, I would have to tell people like, all of your lead managers, your acquisitions people, your salespeople, whatever you want to call them, every single time a person on the phone has a question, write that question down. There's topics for you. And then there's a whole kind of ideation phase we could go through.
Yeah.
Now with AI, it's easier than ever. Here's a really hot tip for you, Mike, and the listeners is go to your website. Hopefully, we're going to just assume you have a good website built out already. Okay. We're just going to say that for now. You have a website, go to your website, copy the link URL, pop back into ChatGPT and say, I'm trying to shoot video content for social media and I need 25, 50, 100, 1,000, name your number, topics that I can do for video content. Here's my website. Please scrape it and then hit the deep research button and then hit go. And then it's going to spit out an unlimited amount of topics for you to be doing video content on. And you can tweak it. Like I'll tweak it and I'll say, stay focused on this silo of topics. Like we're very specialized in probate, so stay focused in this. We really like to buy pre-foreclosure, so stay focused in this topic. You can kind of tweak it that way. And then afterwards, Mike, I'm going in and I'm saying, okay, great. Here's the topics that I like. So I like topics 5, 10, 12, 20, 22. Please give me hooks for each of those and maybe an outline of what I can talk about and discuss. Help me
Yeah.
craft call to actions. So that's kind of the process I would go through. And just with that alone, you shouldn't run out of ideas to talk about. And
Right.
again, like you and I talked about this too, is like there still needs to be somebody that pushes the button, right? Like AI is going to do a whole lot of the heavy lifting for you. It's going to take away so much work, but you still need to go in and give those prompts. So at
Right.
this
Right.
point, Mike, if people aren't doing it, I would just say it's laziness, but there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of other options.
Well, I think a lot
But
of people, that's one of the benefits. Like when I had, I talk about, I gave this example of a fitness coach. I hired a fitness coach a couple of years back and helped me make a pretty significant transformation. And the stuff it's like, it was just almost like having an accountability partner. It
yeah,
wasn't, it was like, I was doing stuff that I knew I needed to do, but now I've got somebody holding me accountable to it. And it just kind of forces the issue of like, from this time to this time, this is what you're going to do on Tuesdays and Fridays or whatever. And so, hey, I want to ask a couple of questions here. So I think with a lot of real estate investors specifically, like the important thing is to figure out who is your message for.
yeah,
Because I think what a lot of real estate investors go out and do is they're like, "Hey, let me show you how we made $40,000 on this house." And it's like a case study of the house. But if you're selling coaching, that's a great topic. But if you're trying to position yourself to talk to solve problems from motivated sellers, that is not a good topic, right? It's
yeah,
more of like how we help somebody, somebody went through a divorce and how we help them solve their real estate issue and stuff like
mhm,
that, right? So I think it's very we talked about a bunch of topics you come up with, but I think people really need to define who is the avatar that you're marketing to and then stick to it because real estate investors, probably all entrepreneurs, are like shiny object syndrome. They're like, well, now let me talk to you about how I changed a motor in my, 1969 Mustang. It's like, no, like you gotta like keep it like pure and just focus on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So you bring up a really, really good conversation. I see. I mean, you and I both probably see it from a lot of different people.
Right.
And it. So what I really bring this back around to is it's marketing. Like everything that we're talking about, Mike, when it comes to this kind of stuff, it just goes down to fundamentals in marketing and sales. So from a marketing fundamental standpoint, marketing 101 says know your target demographic better than they know themselves. So if you know them truly as good as you should, then you know what type of content they're going to consume and where they're going to go. And not just content, but marketing as a whole. So let's take, for example, that you were told you went to a mastermind and you were told by somebody you should start a podcast. So then you go out and start a podcast, but the podcast is directed towards motivated sellers. Okay, well let's sit down and think about that for just a second. Does that actually make sense? Because is a motivated seller somebody that's going to come back to your weekly podcast and listen to you talk about how you're going to buy their house from them on a weekly basis? Like, probably not.
Mhm.
And I'm
Right.
I'm just going to tell you no. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: is that like we have to understand the reason for that is because the motivated seller has an interest of only identifying who's going to solve their problem. And whether we like referrals or not, we love referrals. However, for the most part, your sellers are only going to sell one house to you. You're probably never going to hear them again. It's going to be a very transactional process. So the only reason why you would put content out in the first place or any marketing is so that they can identify if you're the person that's going to be able to solve the problem for them. And so once they've made that decision, there's no reason for them to come back. So, you know,
Mhm.
maybe you have a a video series that goes on your YouTube channel instead of a podcast, and that's specifically geared around being a resourceful helper for motivated sellers questions. But that's
Right.
that. So then if we look at like and Mike, I know several people that have brand presence from the motivated seller standpoint or from a personal brand standpoint. This is typically where the conversation kind of like gets really grayed out is if you're think of it from this way: personal brand or personal, like if you want to develop that for yourself, should be built around high level relationships. So that means if you're looking to raise capital, if you're looking to you're still looking to buy deals, but maybe not from motivated sellers, but from wholesalers or realtors, because there's plenty of people that do that. And that's the type of stuff you're putting out. So with Mike talking about doing a case study video and showing how you profited 40 grand on this deal, that probably like if you construct it correctly, it could be good for capital raising, but probably not for like attracting wholesalers because then they're seeing what you're making. But if you're
Right.
coaching, then absolutely, because you have to have that proof that you know what you're doing so you could tell people what to do, right?
Yeah.
And so on the other side, if a motivated seller sees that you profited $40,000 on their house, then that branding is going to get very convoluted. And for the most part, they're not going to, but that's where we have to have brand separation and know that, okay, if we have one brand here that's a house buying brand, I call it the North Star. Who's the North Star? What are we trying to lead to? We're trying to buy houses from this type of demographic, and you need to separate those. So if you're building a personal brand and your demographic is specifically raising capital or bringing in other wholesalers or making relationship with realtors, then that's what you need to be focused on. That's the type of content you put out. So,
Right. So when you talk about kind of the personal brand, and a lot of people have, obviously their house buying brand as well as an investor. So let's say Josh buys houses out of Indiana. So would you advocate that if they're trying to target a motivated seller and just talk about how they solve? I mean, there's this, I think it was Dan Kennedy or somebody that said this. You're trying to insert yourself, you're trying to create content effectively around answering the questions that your prospect has in their mind right now.
mhm.
So it's like, I think I'm going to get a divorce. What are we going to do about our house? It's like, well, how we help people going through divorce solve real estate problems. And so you create content around that. And right. And
Absolutely.
so you're just trying to kind of answer those questions that they have that they might go Google or they might go look on YouTube for. And so, like you said, I mean, they're not going to go like, what podcast can I listen to? I think I'm going to get a divorce here. What
Yeah.
podcast can I listen? Like that doesn't, people listen to podcasts for like entertainment or education on something they're trying to do with their lives, but not necessarily like to solve a problem. In my experience, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
there's a niche there for
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, maybe. But the thing is too is that like you bring up a really good point because they're probably not even going to Google and say, "Show me a video of how to sell my house to X, Y, and Z person." They're looking for they're basically indexing the actual question of what to do with the problem that they have. So if it
Right.
is a tired landlord, they're saying, it's inserting, it's what Mike said, it's inserting yourself into the mind of the person that's asking the question. Like, what question are they actually asking? So if a tired landlord is dealing with, really crappy tenant, and, they're having all kinds of issues with them, and they're like, I've had this property for 60 years, I just want to get rid of it. Then what are they asking? So they're probably asking, what to do with a house if I, don't want to remove the tenant and don't want to deal with this property anymore. Like,
Right.
there's some context that, which we'll get into the conversation of AI, but there's some context that people will be asking around, and that's the type of content. And just from a principal standpoint, Mike, it's the SEO, like the search engine optimization of like the way that you're framing the content you put out to pair it up with the question that's being asked. Principally, that's what makes that piece of marketing work effectively, is that you are very niched into a very specific topic that you're answering a question to, and then your demographic is asking that question, so then they're getting paired with your video. And I like to look at like the video stuff, Mike, as it's a resource. It's a resource because you're delivering value because you're answering a question. So it's a resource for the person that's looking for an answer to the question that they're asking. And so you put that
Yeah.
on your YouTube channel, website, all that stuff, and that's
And
what it
and
appears.
and on your, I guess putting it on your website is obvious, but whether it's a YouTube channel or, social media profiles, would you advocate that those are business pages, like your Josh buys houses versus Josh Keller as an individual?
Absolutely. So yes, if we're marketing to motivated seller leads, that's where the deviation comes in. I think you need to build that brand. So the brand where you will appear on it, probably because maybe you're the CEO if you're listening right now, and you're the person that owns the company, and maybe you're a solopreneur and you're the only one in your company that's buying houses. It still needs to be associated with a brand. So it's joshbuyshouses.com, and that's my brand. Then I might have a personal brand as well, but maybe I'm leveraging that for higher level relationships. But the importance of that difference is, again, with the type of topics and content that you put out, the algorithms will naturally deviate those from the demographics. So that's kind of the way it works. Now, if seller finds you there and then they're like, I want to go do some research on Josh Culler and go look him up, then they'll go look me up and find everything that I have going on here. For the most
Right.
part, typically people won't do that. They'll dig through the company and look for more information about the company. But this is where, I don't know what works the best between, like, if you have your name on the company versus like, Indiana cash buyers or something like that. That's where
Right.
it's like you can have that conversation with somebody else.
I think it comes down to how much an individual pushes themselves to be the face of their brand.
Right.
So if it's like Indiana home buyers versus Josh Keller home buyers, and you're like on TV ads and you're like the main face on a postcard, and you show up on the website and it's all about you, like people
Yeah.
that have like, like Eric Brewer, for example. I mean, he is the brand of
Mhm.
his like house buying stuff. That would be hard for him to disassociate his personal
Yeah.
social media profiles with his house buying business, because he's put himself front and center on that. But there's also people that are like, it's just the name of their company. They're not really the face of it. And if you go look at the website, it has like their whole team lined up there and stuff like that, where they're not trying to be like the spokesperson for their company necessarily. I think that probably is
Yeah.
where the dividing line is.
And I think some of it too has a lot to do with what other things you have going on. Because like with Eric, he uh like he has coaching in some regards, like teaches novations and
Right.
that sort of thing, but he's not out there talking about how much money he made on certain deals and that sort of thing. So
Sure. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
does a lot of, like, on a personal brand, he does a lot of culture stuff. So you'll see like he has a lot of stuff about his team and team building and self-development, stuff like that. So that kind of stuff may not deter a motivated seller. It might actually attract them because
Yeah.
they see that this is a real human being. So a lot of it has to do with what you're doing on both sides of the coin. But if you are somebody that's talking about the type of deals that you're doing and case studies and trying to bring in coaching students, or even raise capital and that sort of thing, showing what type of returns you can get, somebody, then you definitely want to deviate those between like a brand. Now, again, like you could be on the videos, you could be on the TV ads, but maybe the brand needs to be something a little bit more
Sure.
unspecific to your name. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the importance there. So
Yeah, great. And we could probably have an entire show talking about just ideation, I guess.
yeah,
We have a whole list of others that I wanted to get to today, but um, so on the back, just staying on the ideation for a minute, I think where a lot of people struggle with is coming up with these ideas. And I've always and I've been, I create a lot of content too. So I've talked for years about how to keep ideation as a separate part from creation. Because sometimes people are like, yeah, I need to start creating content. You're like, all right, I got a little time to create something. What am I gonna, gosh, what am I gonna even say? I don't even know. And so it's almost to just have a list, whether it's in a spreadsheet or a document
yeah,
or somewhere, like you can go to the well and go grab those ideas that you came up with previously. And I can tell you, from somebody that creates a lot of content, sometimes I have a list of stuff and I'm like, I'm not really feeling that one today. So let me talk about this one instead. And so it's
yeah,
good to have a big like bucket of stuff to pull from, right? Because then you can't make the excuse of, I was going to record some stuff, but I didn't know what to say.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is that so something that dictates that as well is how much you're putting out also. So,
Sure. Yeah.
if you are generally putting out, let's say you're putting out 3 social media videos weekly, then you don't need to be out there shooting like 10 or 20 videos on a weekly basis. You don't need to be spending more than an hour recording video content. That has a lot to do with it, and then, from there, you pick your topics, but I do think that it's important to understand, like, when I'm specifically working with a client, I'm bringing them on board for us to manage what we're doing for them, the number one thing I ask is, "What does your capacity look like?" Because you run a full-time business, so I can't afford to have you neglect that, and then you become a full-time content creator. I think a lot of
Right.
people, Mike, and you and I talked about this a little bit beforehand, and I think that there's kind of like an understanding that you really have to have about this, where you had mentioned, like, you are the content. It's like everything that you do on a daily basis, you could just record that, document it. You don't even need to sit down and like sometimes even think about the topics that you need to do. You just need to have somebody recording it. I do agree with that, but I think that a lot of real estate investors, even like 2, 3 years ago, where they got in trouble was they hired a videographer to follow them around 24/7. And some people need that. Like, I get that because they're at that level, but most 99% of business owners don't need that. Maybe you need somebody that can come in once a month and record for 2 or 3 hours at a time. You have all your topics ready to go. And then maybe you go visit some houses because you're putting yourself in the environment and what you're talking about, and you record the videos there. And you just do that in a batching standpoint so that you don't have to worry about it for the
Right.
next 30 days, and you can record. Or you have somebody come in and maybe have an assistant. Like, look, guys, it's very easy for an assistant to just open a camera or even a phone and record something as you're, talking. Maybe
Yeah.
you're leading a meeting for your team and you're talking about your new process for the sales process or the lead manager process. You record that, and that's all good content that you could be capturing, where you don't have to do extra video in order to be able to generate content. But I
Yeah.
think that understanding your capacity is the biggest piece of this, because you don't want to chop out, 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week of just recording video, and then you're only putting out a few social media posts on a weekly basis. But even more so is like, what can your time allow, right? Like, do you
Right.
have an hour a week to be able to record? Cool. Well, then that'll dictate how much we're putting out on a weekly basis. So if we're putting out, 2 core YouTube videos that are 10 minutes long a piece, and then 5 videos a week on social media, well, is that something I can keep up with for the long term? Because nobody wants to talk about it, Mike, but you know better than almost anybody out there, because of how long you've been doing this, consistency wins the game at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
nobody wants to say it, because it's not sexy, it's not something that's fun to say, and it's not the new and improved version of content strategy, but it is the truest form of how marketing works, is staying consistent with it, and then you improve it over time. Obviously, that's the objective there. But if you start off with like, oh, I'm going to shoot like 2 hours a week of video, and that means I'm putting out like 2 videos a day on social media, and then you do that for 3 months, and then you eventually fall off. Like, you need to build
Yeah.
up as you go along.
Yeah, I've talked about that many times in the past because we were with the Flip Nerd podcast, which was our first podcast. That started in 2012. So at the time, there were only like 6 real estate podcasts, and there's like thousands of them now. But if
Yeah,
you go, I don't know how many there are. There's a ton. If you go look though, you'll find a bunch of shows out there, and if you look at it, you're like, oh, they haven't put a new episode out in 4 years,
right.
right? But iTunes won't tell you that. They don't serve them up very high, but if you do a search, you'll find a whole bunch of, and not just real estate, every industry, people that like got excited about going to start creating content or doing a podcast or whatever, and they do like 5 or 10 episodes. And two things happen. One is they didn't really have a good, what I like to tell people is you need to have a good business reason, a business
Yeah,
case for why you're doing it. Because
absolutely.
if it's ego driving you, there's going to be a point where your business is going through a difficult time, or you're just, like every entrepreneur, you take on more than you can, you bite off more than you can chew. And you're like, I'm not going to do one
That's
this
the
week.
first thing that goes.
A week
Yeah.
turns into a month turns into a year, and then you're just out. It's the same thing with, obviously creating content for social media is go into it at a level that you're going to be able to do consistently for years to come. And you should do it. I say this about paid advertising all the time. Like I always say, like, go into a channel, advertise enough to be able to buy one house a month and be able to invest in that for 6 months without making anything. Like
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
people go into it for a month. They're like, oh, I tried and it didn't work. It's like, it was never going to work in 1 month. Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to be basically we're beating a dead horse here, but consistency is key. So only go into it knowing that you can do it for literally years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's, like you said, I don't think there's much more add to that, but I will just tell you right now, the most successful people that I know of that have put out content, whether it was to build a following or to generate leads, which Mike said it perfectly, like we need to be doing this for a business reason. So if you're trying to put content out, this is marketing. So the number one objective is not followers. The number one objective is not video views or likes. It's lead generation. That's what we're
Yeah.
putting it out for. Now, there's certain practices that you have to do along the way for each of those platforms because you're not just going to post videos on Instagram and just sell the whole time. You need to deliver value. But at the same time, as long as you're focused on, is this generating leads or any kind of brand awareness for me? That's what the objective of it is for. And you have to
Yep.
focus on.
Yeah, that's great. One thing that you just said, gosh, it slipped my mind. That's really critical is, gosh, I forgot it. So anyway, I'm glad we're spending this much
I have
time on
too many things,
ideation.
Mike.
Yeah, but we got into this to talk about kind of AI, and AI can help you with ideas for sure. I mean, it can give you endless ideas, and there
Mhm.
is AI to help certainly more than ever with production and distribution and all that stuff. But you're right, the hardest part of this is just staying consistent and staying on top of it. I mean, that's what makes or breaks people. Like it's not, it's almost like you just got to do that work up front. You got to commit to it, and the rest is easy and getting easier. Not to take anything away from people that, like you, that have an agency to help people with this, but I
Mhm.
I think you would agree that tools are making
Yeah.
things easier than they have in the past for sure. So, but you
Yeah.
still have to, you know, basically people know they need to eat less and work out more if they want to get in shape, but they still need somebody to guide them down that path and hold them accountable and celebrate with them and whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the reason why people use me as a service is because, and this isn't just me. I mean, this could apply to any other social media marketing agency out there, but for me specifically, it's because they don't have the time or the manpower to be able to push those buttons. Like we are in our like operations, we are using AI in a lot of stuff, and it's trimmed down a lot of our work capacity, or our workload rather, for the team members. And so that's really helped a lot. But you still need somebody to manage it, whether it is us or somebody else. And for the most part, most people will come to us because they don't have the knowledge of what. But it's the whole thing. Like I've heard this tale. I'm gonna try to not butcher it. I should have looked this up specifically, but it came up organically. So there's a story where there's a large freighter that is sitting in the water, and for some reason it's just not being able to move. There's something that's wrong with it, so they can't get the engine started up and they can't get it going. So they bring in a mechanic, and he comes in from long ways away. They fly him in, and he gets paid lots of money, just a few $1,000s per hour to work. He pops in and then spends less than 5 minutes, finds one thing to fix, and then tweaks it, and then the engines start right up. And the captain of the ship says, "Oh, well, it only took you 5 minutes to do it, so we could pay you a lot less, right?" And then the engineer says, "No, that's not how that works. I knew what to look for, what to fix, and how long it would take me to do it. You
Right.
didn't. So without me coming in and spending 5 minutes on fixing this, you're not going anywhere." And that's a lot of times what service providers will, kind of help people with is knowing what to look for, how long it's going to take, and the expectations to set, plus like you said, the guidance, because that's where I invest a lot of my
Yeah.
time. It's not just editing video and putting it out for people. It's the actual like ideation, the strategy portion of it, and then keeping people on point and consistent. Because when somebody works with me, Mike, I almost act as a coach as well, because you need somebody that is going to hold you accountable. So if somebody's working with me and they're not recording content, I tell them like, "Hey, look, I'm still going to run your card. Like, you agreed to this. So I'm going to hold you accountable to make sure that you can get me the content. I'll fly out to you to record video if you need me to, or I'll meet up somewhere or whatever, but we're going to get content recorded because this is what we agreed to." And
Yeah.
that's where you need somebody that can really, like, personnel wise, maintain that, because like you said, people get super excited about starting up new marketing initiatives, so they'll do it for 2 or 3 months, say it didn't work, and chalk it up as a loss and like, "Okay, well, it didn't work. I gave it all the effort I did," but they really didn't.
Yeah. I know
So
what I was going to say a moment ago. One other reason why people quit is they don't think that anybody's listening. And
yeah,
if your goal, you have to think of like, what is your goal? And this is very specific to, we're talking a lot about real estate investors. If you're in Dallas, Texas, or anywhere, it doesn't really matter, anywhere USA, it doesn't matter if somebody in Pakistan is like watching your content. Like, so there are people, the Hermosis of the world, that get like huge volume, and people, think they always get like, are concerned with something going viral. If you're trying to talk to somebody in your market to solve their problem, you're never going to go viral. And if you did, it's not going to help you in any way. Right. And
yeah,
so don't get hung up on all the vanity metrics of clicks and watches and stuff like that. You just need somebody every once in a while, one person to watch it and sell you their house, because you're
yeah.
going to make a lot of money on it. So those vanity metrics are almost meaningless in a local market, because you're never going to have big numbers, and that's okay.
The example I always use is, let's take scenario A and B. So scenario A is that you created a video, you put it out, and it went viral, got 500,000 views on it in less than, a day, but it didn't generate any leads for you. Was it a successful video? Well, in the eyes of most people on the outside, they'd say like, "Yeah, Mike, like your video, 500,000 views in a day. That's crazy. That's super good. Like, good for you. Pat on the back, clap it up. Awesome." But on the backside, like, I did that didn't do anything for me. Now,
Right.
theoretically, obviously, I think a lot of people will combat and say, like, theoretically, the more eyeballs you can get on a video, the higher chances you have of hitting the one person that you need to reach. That is correct. But if we look at scenario B and we say, all right, put a video out and it got 500 views in a day and, did kind of okay or whatever, but it generated let's say it generated 5 leads. Those 5 leads turned into 2 deals, and those 2 deals brought me in $20,000 a piece for a wholesale assignment.
Right.
Was that a successful video? Most people would be like, "Hey, Mike, your videos are doing a little bit low. Let me work with you to see if I can get those numbers up a little bit." But no, it was actually successful because it brought in deals for me. It brought in money. And that's why being so focused on the business side of this is the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think social media has a lot of similarities with SEO in that regard of like, you put out a couple pieces of content and it doesn't really do a lot. Like if you think of like SEO as like building a brick wall, or even content creation is like you put one brick down, like people are just stepping over, they don't even notice it's there. But you start to build up this wall, and you have this massive kind of library that's out there. And what I think about content, and same as SEO, I guess, is that um, truthfully, it's pretty common that when I work with somebody, or certainly when I'm going to hire somebody, I go stalk them on social media. Like, I want to see, like, what are they posting? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
And there's definitely a ton of people that I'm like, there's no way I'm working with, there's no way
Yeah.
I'm even like,
Yeah.
literally put that one in the trash. Like, they looked pretty good, but now that I see that this about them, I'm like, no, right? And so it's the same thing for the content we're talking about here. Maybe your content is not a lead generator per se, but it's like validates somebody that's thinking about working with you, and they go look for you online, and it gives
Yeah.
them the confidence to say like, oh wow, I really like their philosophy, or they seem trustworthy, or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah, and for the most part too, you'll find that if you've done this long enough, that it's not just the one piece of content that normally converts somebody. It's like hundreds of pieces. It's
Right.
like it's the reason why, you send multiple direct mail campaigns to the same person, not just one. It's the same reason why
Right.
you hit them with ads several times. So I have this analogy, Mike, that I call it the relevance bridge. You mentioned bricks, and so it brought this up organically, and I think it makes the most sense in terms of like the way that like actual marketing works and then getting to your lead. So if you imagine you have two islands. So island one is where you are standing and you have your service, your offering, whatever it is that you're trying to market. And then island two is where all your potential leads are. So all the potential people that could work with you. So everybody in your demographic. And they are separated by a roaring rapids. And the rapids, imagine them to be the daily marketing that your demographic's getting hit with, not with just other people that are buying houses, but also the Coca-Cola commercial, also the billboards that they're driving by for the law attorney. Like there's all kinds of different types of marketing that they get hit with on a daily basis, and that's the roaring rapids. So it's really loud. They can't hear you on the other side, so they can't get to you, and they're not going to wade through all of, the rapids to get to you. So what you
Right.
do is that you build a bridge to get to them. And you can imagine, like Mike said, each piece of marketing, each piece of content that you put out is a brick that is building a bridge over to them, so that you put enough relevance into the bridge itself. And then they look at it and they say, oh, this bridge is super easy to cross because I have all the information that I need to make a buying decision or selling decision. And so they easily walk across it safely to get to you. And that's
Yep.
ideally what it is. And you create that by relevant marketing. So it's niche into their specific needs. It's whatever they're looking for. And that's how you build it. And it makes the sale so easy if you can market effectively that way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's definitely a long game strategy. Like, you're not going to do anything in a month or a week or even 6 months. Like, you need to be committed to this for a long time.
Absolutely.
And if you're committed to your business for a long time, why wouldn't you be committed to kind of building your brand for a long time, right? So, Josh, hey,
Yeah, that's a good
we
one.
really kind of stuck on the upfront piece of kind of creating content, and honestly, the production and distribution and stuff like that. I mean, there are tools that make this easier than ever, but I'm glad we stuck on this because
Yeah.
this really is the hardest part. And I think the people
Yep.
where people need the most help. So, if folks want to connect with you, you obviously do this as a service through Color Media. If folks want to connect with you or learn more, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being willing to give me that opportunity. So, there's a couple of things that you could do. So, first of all, is I encourage people, especially if you're a real estate investor, go listen to my podcast, which I've had Mike on, and I'm going to have him on again soon. It is called the REI Marketing Weekly. So we specifically talk about marketing and sales. We get other real estate investors across the country on to talk about what they're doing and what's working effectively for them. And so go listen to that podcast, REI Marketing Weekly. You can find it on all the podcast platforms. And then find me on social media. So Instagram or Facebook, just look up Josh Culler. I'm pretty much the only Josh Culler that's out there verified. And send me a message if you want to get connected with me. Just say, Mike sent me from the Investor Fuel podcast and I'd like to chat with you, and then I'll get connected with you. And I'm very active on those platforms, so I'm very communicative. And that's the most effective and best way to get connected with me. So.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. This is a blast, and you actually brought out some really good questions that I had to skew and think about the process of it. So it's very good.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, it's a good discussion, and there's a lot going on there. So,
Yeah,
from two people that have created a lot of content, or think about it a lot,
yeah,
So
yeah.
awesome. Well, good to have you. Hey, everybody. I hope you got some good value from today. At the end of the day, like, I think if whether you're building your business brand or your personal brand, or quite frankly, most entrepreneurs should be building both. Like, you have to make sure that you have a good business case for it, like we talked about. Make sure that it's not just some ego driving you. You justify it because it's going to help feed your family ultimately and help you build your business at the end of the day. Which you've got to be committed for. Like everything, you got to be committed for the long term. Play the long game. So hope you got some great value from today. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next show. Take care. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.